Paul, can you delete what I already sent you?
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay. Testing. Okay, perfect. We'll start in about 30 seconds, everybody.
Thank you.
The amended one, delete that.
Delete that one. Yeah. It needed like 5 comments.
Gotcha.
Working.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is the Wednesday, December 16th, 2020 regular town council meeting for Scarborough, Maine. For those that just joined us, just some quick background information. We actually started the meeting at 6 o'clock and we had a 1-hour executive session. So there's been no business done, no public business has been done. However, we have called the meeting to order. We have done the Pledge of Allegiance. So we're essentially technically resuming a meeting. However, this is the beginning of the public meeting. And I believe this will be the beginning of the YouTube broadcast as well. So with that said, I am on item number 4 on our agenda, which is general comments from the public. This is for items that are not on the agenda. Does anybody in the public have any comments for items that are not on the agenda? Randy. Oh. Randy, if you just want to unmute yourself. Yep.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Randy Hogan. I live in Ocean View Harbor. Are you all able to hear me?
We are, yep.
Great. My comment is about the property at 649 US Route 1. Shall I go ahead?
Sure.
Great. So when I first came to understand that this was an opportunity for the town, I was really excited about it because as somebody who has planned events in Scarborough, it's very difficult to find an indoor community meeting space that can gather more than a dozen people at a reasonable cost with access to a kitchen, audiovisual, and ample seating, including like round tables where people can have meals together or for discussion. So I was very excited about that opportunity. But as I listened to you all in your workshop and took a look at the video of the property itself, I thought, oh, there's some serious problems here with that concern me about accessibility, including, as you all noted, 8 parking spaces. I don't know if among the 8 there are already designated disabled parking spots, so that would eliminate perhaps some of the parking spaces when drawing groups of, you know, a couple dozen or more. That's really a significant challenge, and would be a challenge during the winter months when perhaps spaces are not as available with snowplows and so forth. And then the accessibility of up and down stairs, which I think would probably cause more expense than what you see on the budget. I mean, you could put a lift in just to do something to go up and down, or elevators, but you know, we know that ADA benefits us all. It's more than people who are in wheelchairs or using walkers. It's people with hand trucks or strollers or non-visible injuries. I mean, I've used elevators when I've hurt my back, or, you know, folks have other needs to use an elevator, or when you're trying to move people in and out for a meeting, multiple people, you want to be able to have them go up and down, so whether an elevator or a ramp. And then the kitchen also, you'd want to make accessible and modernize it, especially if you're going to be feeding groups of people. You've already noted the accessibility issues with the bathroom. So those are my main concerns. And I thought that, you know, if there are other reasons to purchase this property for the town, that sounds fine to me. But I can't see standing this up as a real viable community center space, and really encourage you all as counselors to pursue other options for broader community use. We certainly need them, and I would appreciate that. And thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Are there any other general public comments? Okay, thank you. Item number 5 is approval of the minutes for the December 2nd, 2020 Town Council meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Tony?
Counselor Clucci?
Yes.
Counselor Gleifstein?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is adjustments to the agenda. I don't believe there are any. Item number 7 is items to be signed. I signed those this morning. And item number 8 is the town manager report. So Tom, would you like to give us your report?
Yes, thank you. Some exciting news to report. I think I foreshadowed this a bit at your last council meeting. With all the rumored rollout of the vaccine for fighting COVID-19, we actually do have one drug that's been approved by FDA. There's another drug, the Moderna drug, that I believe is on a similar path. Perhaps by the end of the week, we'll be seeing that vaccine approved as well. And so the state of Maine, as is every other state, has been diligently working for months to come up with a plan to administer the vaccine. That includes a list of different priorities in our population. Among the first will be first responders. And we have been first selected, and we've evaluated and considered the request, but we've been selected to be one of 3 agencies in Cumberland County to administer vaccine to first responders. And that's a fairly narrow group. That's fire, EMS, police, and dispatch. Though in Cumberland County, that represents about 15 to 16,000 individuals. Do keep in mind, both of the approved drugs, or the approved one and the one will be, both are 2-stage drugs. So there's a 2-step process involved in this as well. But we've really scoured all the different challenges, from scheduling to insurance billing, to simple logistics of how we move people through our facility safely, and have really become comfortable that we can accomplish this. And I say this with great confidence and some uncertainty on this first wave. I do have some different reservations considering rolling it out to the general public. I think that's a whole different endeavor. So we have, in fact, advised the state that we're willing to serve as one of the 3 areas to administer, and believe that we have the capability, and we're pleased to step up and do our part to move this forward. You have my assurance that this commitment begins and ends with first responders at this point. And as we know more, we'll perhaps come back before you and seek further advice as to whether or not we want to play an ongoing role. I have been assured that all of these actions are covered within our current insurance coverage. We're making certain that we're using paramedic and EMS advanced credentialed folks only. The important part of that is both those classifications. This intramuscular inoculations are within their scope of practice. And so it's nothing new and different. And beyond that, there's also some federal immunities that come with the vaccine itself. So we're confident that we're in very good standing in that respect. In terms of cost, we're quite certain, though, we'll be funding these shifts with overtime shifts, that the reimbursement that's been negotiated with insurance companies will be sufficient to cover our costs, and the state will be assuming all scheduling duties. So again, we think we've been pretty thorough in understanding what this commitment is, and feel as though we can do it without any risk or harm to us, and really want to be a leader. So we're pleased to announce that. More details to follow. Incidentally, it's the Moderna vaccine that is being considered will be used in this case. That's not even approved by the FDA yet. We've already been advised that they'll be shipping to the state as soon as December 21st. So they're certainly expecting and hoping FDA moves that approval right along. Also, I want to mention that tomorrow we'll be holding our implicit bias training with our supervisory staff. We have just about 30 of our senior staff and supervisors that will be part of a 2-hour session tomorrow. This will be focusing on bias, prejudice, and discrimination. I bring this up because it's certainly appropriate in our society today, but it also was a matter that was discussed, and I thank the council for agreeing to add that money back in for this training in the budget. So we are moving forward with that, and we'd like to roll that out to all the staff at some point, but we're going to start with supervisors tomorrow. On the marijuana establishment licensing front, this is a matter that's consumed the council's agenda, really dominated your agenda all fall, and will probably span into early in the new year. The council's been quite clear about its intentions of getting through the licensing process and then evaluating kind of where we are and perhaps modifying the ordinance and licensing requirements. In preparation for that, staff have taken a number of proactive steps. We have engaged the services of an expert, an odor expert, that among other things is doing a full and complete inventory of all odor mitigation being used at the various establishments. Our application process simply, we're checking a box that they have one, but we don't really know what it is and its efficacy. And so with this expert's advice, we'll have a good inventory, and I think he'll be making recommendations as to what might be most effective. And I think that information might be very helpful to council as you consider further clarifying requirements in the licensing process. Coincident with this, we also have an online fillable form for a citizen complaint. This is around expected odor complaints. We've heard these sorts of complaints along, and I suspect they'll persist. So we want to make it as easy as possible for residents to make us aware when they are experiencing an odor that they want to report to us. And we also installed today a weather station. This is a $200 weather station, so it's not a huge commitment, but it's actually on the rooftop of the snow canning facility where we've at least received initial, most of the initial odor complaints is really emanate from that facility. And we'll look to correlate any complaint information we receive with certain weather conditions, wind direction, speed, atmospheric conditions, and such. It remains to be seen if there's any correlation, but we thought that data might be very good to pair up with complaints. So we're trying to get ready and help you have an informed discussion. Certainly the complaint process and the weather monitoring will be an ongoing matter. Incidentally, the complaint won't be limited to marijuana odor. It'll be an opportunity for folks to make us aware of any other odor that they're experiencing. Several weeks back, you might recall the school department actually had to close schools for a day because of a sewer backup here on municipal campus. They were able to clear the line that day. They've come back and done some exploratory work, or they'd hoped to, with the television to televise the line to see if there's any degradation or what the cause of that backup was. And lo and behold, they lifted the covers and it was backed up again. So they were able to break that free once again. They have since televised. And the good news is there's no apparent failure in the line, which was our fear. There was just a lot of different debris, stones, all sorts of items flushed down toilets from every one of the schools on the campus. And so just the accumulation of that material over time, and incidentally, this line was put back in the 60s with the original Wentworth School construction. It is a clay tile line, and it runs from this campus all the way cross country out to Sawyer Road. So it's not a simple fix. So I report that because I'm relieved that it sounds as though we've dodged a bullet, but that's probably something that we'll have to consider going forward. As you've all probably heard, we do have a winter storm on our doorstep. It does look as though it's going to be certainly the first significant storm of the season. I plan on having town hall open in the morning. It's going to start early morning before dawn. And interestingly, it will be cold enough, so it will be all snow event, which is ideal for us. We can actually deal with snow much better than we can with this intermittent rain and sleet. And it's going to be a daytime event, which is fairly unique. Last report I saw will be done by probably just after it gets dark, early evening. So we'll monitor conditions throughout the day. I'll certainly consult with council leadership if we feel as though for safety of residents and staff, we need to close early. I also mentioned it as a segue. For months now, we've had an ongoing conversation with Southern Maine managers, particularly those in Cumberland County, really recognizing that in winter season, our public works departments are first responders as well. Just imagine if we had one or two, much less 4, 5, or 6 of our plow drivers, and we don't have extra spare plow drivers. So when someone's gone, that route doesn't get plowed. So we all have a similar concern, and we've seen how the virus can go like wildfire through workplaces. We've done all sorts of things to split the shift and keep them separate and thereby preserve them. But we're talking among the communities of perhaps a public works mutual aid compact of sorts. We have a long history in the fire service for mutual aid. And I think this is something that I'd like to bring forward to the council. So I'll work with leadership and perhaps bring that as soon as January sometime, just so we have a backup plan in the event that we are severely deficient and not able to plow our roads. Ad hoc committees, I've been a bit remiss. Well, not a bit, I have been remiss. I had hoped to convene both the ad hoc committees this month to get them organized. I guess I waited too long, and at this point, I don't feel it's proper to ask volunteers to come through the holidays. So I have worked with the different council liaisons. Charter review will be held on January 12th, and the downtown committee will be January 7th. I'll be sending out a communication to committee members by the end of this week with some background material, a little homework that they can do if they wish. So I apologize for that delay, but we'll be up and running as soon as the new year. Last two very quick things. Thank you all for your feedback on the comp plan. Jay and I believe we have a very firm understanding of the areas of concern, and we'll be going to work to bring that back to you. We'll be working with Councilor Anderson to really put together a milestone or a timeline between now and then, and maybe beyond, just so there's a mutual expectation of, for all of us, all of our purposes, what to expect in that regard. But this is a high priority for staff, and we'll be turning that document around as soon as we can. Incidentally, I also reached out to GPCOG. You may have heard that Christine Egan mentioned in passing last week that among the many services they offer, they do comp planning. And I'm not about interested in engaging them to write our plan, it's done, but I think with their expertise and a fresh eye and perspective, frankly, I think they could be very helpful for very cheap money to be able to a kind of an editing role or proofreading and help in the overall flow in the organization. So that conversation is ongoing, and I'm fairly confident we'll find a way to bring them on to help us out. And lastly, just looking forward on your agenda, very thankful the council's willing to consider granting a couple of extra holiday days to our staff. It has been a trying year for all, and very much appreciated. Once it was known and the agenda was published on Friday, I heard a number of very positive comments from staff, and I suspect they'll continue. So thank you very much for considering that. So that was a lot. I'll stop and take any questions.
Any questions for Tom? Don, I saw you raise your hand up. Do you still have a question, Councilor Hamel? You're on mute. I had to mute a couple people because there was some background noise. Sorry.
Yeah, Tom, I was just going to ask in terms of the, offering assistance potentially for administering the vaccines. Is this something that we were approached to help out with, or we offered this, or how did that originate?
We were approached. For first responders, they have devised a plan to have 3 agencies in each county, all 16 counties. We were approached. I don't know exactly why, but us, Portland, and Gorham are for Cumberland County. I can tell you this. I know we served a similar role back with the H1N1 vaccine.
Yeah.
And I think before that, Councilor Katarina mentioned that she came here way back in the day for polio vaccine. Incidentally, Scarborough EMS is the oldest EMS department in the state. And I think that's well known among EMS circles. So that may have had something to do with it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Councilor Gleisten?
Yes, so Tom, I was wondering, the budget for the expert, the smell expert, is that coming out of admin?
Yes.
Okay, And we didn't have a specific line item, did we, for marijuana administration? I know we had a line item for what we expected to get for revenue, but did we have a line item for what we expected to spend administratively?
No, we did not. So I've had to be creative. I think for the several $1,000s that we'll spend, it will be money well spent. And I believe we'll be exceeding our marijuana establishment revenues based on the number of licenses that have come forward. They've exceeded all expectations.
So I would like to make a request, and if it's not too laborious, so you don't have to answer now, you could think about it, but that, maybe staff kind of, keep just a little chit sheet of kind of the amount of time, that everyone is spending on this, and maybe even kind of thinking back a little bit, just as a rough estimate. I know this startup is pretty intensive, but to kind of give us an idea, because I know that, when we look at the ordinance, obviously fees are part of it. And anything our staff is working on with this is things that they can't work on to do something else. So I'm just kind of wondering if you and again, you don't need to answer now, but if we could keep just a little running total of, it's,
Sure.
it's taking, 10 hours a week of the assistant town manager's time, and 5 hours, 2 hours a week of the town manager's time, and whoever else might be involved, Toady, police chief. I know we have a lot of staff involved in this now. So we're police lieutenants, probably not the chief, but I don't even think we know who all is involved and how much time is being spent. So I know it would have been better to have this request early on, but a lot of times when I think back a little bit about what I did, I can say, I don't know exactly, but I could estimate it and then
Sure.
maybe capture it going forward.
Yeah, I believe we can. I will say that I think this first year will be our most intensive year. We now have good systems in place. I think the processing of license applications will be more routine going forward, as will the inspections. So, but I think we can put together a pretty strong estimate of what sort of commitment has been put forward.
Councilor Katarina?
Yeah, whoops, I took myself off video here. Along with the, with following up on Betsy, I think it is a good idea to track some of that, because I know I've been hearing a little pushback on it. Plus, we had a letter from one of the attorneys who's represented the marijuana folks in the past that, our fees are really high. Well, it would be nice to say, this is why. I mean, because it takes, we're using X amount of officials' time and whatnot to deal with this. So yeah, anything you can do with that would be good. Thanks.
Just be aware that the typical retort will be, well, if you didn't have as many regulations, you wouldn't have to do as much inspection. So, but points well taken.
That doesn't work with me, Tom.
That's more than.
Any other questions for Tom? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. With that, we are going to move on to order number 2106. It's a 7 p.m. public hearing only on the proposed amendment to Chapter 405, the Town of Scarborough zoning ordinance, Section 20C, Crossroads Plan Development Districts, otherwise known as the CPD. Roman numeral number 1, basic standards, letter B, permitted uses, with a second reading scheduled for Wednesday, January 6th on 2021. Before we do this, I just want to lay out the flow of the public hearing. The applicant, I think Dan Bacon will be giving a presentation on behalf of the Downs folks. I do want to have the counselors have an opportunity to ask Dan or Peter any questions they want to, and then we'll go to the public and let the public have a public hearing on it. I just feel like with their presentation, it's an opportunity, since they're here, for us to ask questions if we have any. So with that, I'm going to, I believe, bring in Dan Bacon, I believe. So Dan, do you want to raise your hand? Is that the right person? Yeah, okay. All right. Dan, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Great. I have you could share the screen, I have a couple slides that would be helpful.
Yep. Just you need
Sure.
me to share it for you, Dan, I assume. Is that correct?
I don't see,
Actually, I can make you,
share.
I might be able to make you a, I can't. I brought you in as a attendee. Yep, give me 1 second.
Sure.
Are those included in this packet?
No.
They're not.
I'm afraid we don't have the most recent version. Dan, I know you sent that earlier today.
Dan, is that the one you're looking for?
I updated it. I can email it to you, Paul, if you
Yeah,
want.
you
me
want to email it to me real quick? Yep.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for bearing with us here. Okay. It's on its way. We'll find out how long it takes from Freeport to Scarborough. But thanks, everybody. I don't see myself, but I can present without my camera on. I'm not seeing a way to turn it on.
I'll turn you on, Dan. Give me 1
Oh, okay.
second. Actually, I can't. I'm going to put you back in the audience, Dan, and promote you to panelist. Sorry, everybody. And Dan, I believe you can share your screen now. Do you have the green button on the bottom
I
screen?
do. All right.
Yeah,
Now
I'm going to let you do it then. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And we're off. Sorry for the delay. And good evening, everyone. I'm here on behalf of the Downs and Crossroads Holdings LLC. We know this is a public hearing only, so we just simply wanted to update the council on the progress we've made since our last discussion. At first reading, the council raised some good points and questions. Since that time, a few things have happened. One is we've worked with planning staff on some updated language that we'll talk about, particularly around traffic compatibility. We also had our planning board public hearing, and the board conducted that, I think, 2 Mondays ago, and reviewed that new language as well. And I think you probably should have their minutes. At the end of the meeting, they were pleased with the state of the amendment and had a favorable recommendation. Also want to quickly, on behalf of Rocky, Peter, and I, thank the council for walking the site a few nights ago at the Downs. Looks like we did it just in the nick of time before tonight's storm, and really appreciated the time that the council took to walk through all that's happening, both in the Innovation District, but also the entire project. So really, out of first reading, there was 2, maybe 3 kind of primary points that we felt we really need to focus on and addressing, and largely around kind of compatibility of adding kind of warehousing to the Innovation District. So there's 2 areas that we focused on. One is traffic compatibility. I think people think of warehousing, they think of heavy distribution, heavy truck traffic, and we've done a fair amount of research around the traffic generation for modern warehousing, the type of warehousing and distribution that we're interested in integrating into the Innovation District. And we've worked with our traffic engineers, and the type of warehousing and distribution that we think can complement the Innovation District is the same or less than what's already permitted and expected in the Innovation District. So I can send the entire council this slide presentation so you can look at it in more detail, but this kind of breaks down the types of uses we're already seeing and attracting: office and industrial park land uses, and their trip generation by 1,000 square feet of building area. And that's shown in the darker gray. And then the lighter gray are the types of warehousing that we want to see and add to the Innovation District. And they're the same, and in some cases, a fair amount less from a building area standpoint. So cold storage is a lot less. Sort of typical warehouse and high cube warehouse, that's a type of warehousing, are less or the same as industrial park, a little bit more than industrial park, a little bit less than office. So they fit. That's important for a couple of reasons. One is It'll be entirely in line with our traffic permitting that we're doing already with the town and DOT, with the offsite improvements that we're making. This won't dictate additional improvements or additional traffic. So I thought that was a really important point that we touched on at first reading, but really have dug into and affirmed since then. It's also really important for us from a compatibility with the road system that was just built out there, the other uses in the Innovation District, and also the capacity of Payne Road, the connection out to exit 42. So we thought that would be helpful as the council is considering this. And to reinforce this, we've worked with Jay and the planning board on a specific new performance standard that we're recommending we add to the language. This is something that we hope the council will be supportive of and we could add at second reading. And it's modeled after language in other parts of our zoning ordinance or the town zoning ordinance, specifically around high-tech uses, small batch uses where traffic compatibility is a concern. And it basically reads that warehouse and distribution uses shall be limited to facilities that will not create a volume of truck traffic in excess of other non-residential uses allowed. So basically it makes sure that only those types of warehouse and distribution that are less than what else is allowed can happen in the Innovation District. There's also some language around being in character with the district and not burden the road system. So the board recognized that language, the planning board did, from other reviews that they do, and thought it would be an important addition to the amendment. The other kind of primary design compatibility thing that came up at first reading, came up with the planning board, is, okay, how do warehouse buildings fit with the other buildings in the district so that they are attractive, that they complement the Innovation District? And this is something we really care about as well. We had a good chance to look at the buildings a few afternoons ago out in the Innovation District. So I think the council's aware, but I just wanted to reinforce, we have specific design guidelines that we established with direction from the planning board for the Innovation District. So we've been following those, applying those with all new construction. The buildings that you'll see on the screen to the right are either complete or underway. And the buildings on the left are the types of kind of modern warehouse that we think can fit right in. So these same design guidelines will apply to a new warehouse, much like they apply to the other permitted uses in the district. And we're already seeing kind of warehouse type buildings that are doing a great job of adding windows, adding materials, and really breaking up long walls and being attractive and good neighbors to other uses. Lastly, and something that we didn't want to talk too much about, but that has come up from some questions from counselors, is kind of the value of warehouse buildings. And we're seeing, as we do buildings in Innovation District and other locations, that the value, the building value, the site value really isn't dropping off with a warehouse building versus another type of building. Because many of the buildings we're building out there are essentially warehouses, and then they have more finished space inside that takes them beyond a warehouse structure. But the unfinished warehouse building is, in site improvements and land value, is toggling right around $100 a square foot, which is what was expected for the Innovation District. So we wanted to touch on that briefly for you this evening, because that's been a question. So that's really kind of what we wanted to cover with the update prior to the public hearing. And we feel like we share a lot of the same goals for this amendment. We want the Innovation District to kind of activate with kind of the biotech, medical, food processing type uses that we've planned all along for the Innovation District. And some amount of warehousing is really an operational necessity at this time. And I think that this amendment can lead to that. A second key point is we're really targeting only those types of warehouses that generate the same or less traffic and truck traffic than what's already allowed. And so with that new language, it also would be a restriction that we're pleased to abide by and would want to. And then the last few comments are, we want warehouses to fit in as well, and complement the great end users already in the innovation district. So it's just as important to us that they're good neighbors and a good fit, I think, as it is to the town and the council and planning board. And we think that this amendment can do a great job in kind of continue to activate the innovation district and be a mix of uses that everybody can be proud of. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll end my presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. You said you were ending your presentation?
Mr. Chair,
I'll stop sharing as well.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, so would it be, sorry to like mess up the flow here, but there was the second to the last slide seemed to have a lot of detail on it. Would it be possible for Dan to go back through that again one more time, or at least to have it up there for a moment?
That sounds like a legitimate question to me. Dan, you want to pull that back up and just go over it one more time?
Sure.
And I think Councilor Hamel, I think when he's sharing the screen, feel free to interrupt with interject with a question if it makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'll pull it up so I can see you guys a little bit better. Okay, so Don, you're speaking specifically to the value slide, I believe?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So Dan, could you maybe back it up or reiterate and perhaps where some of these numbers are coming from? And
yeah, happy to. So there's been a few questions about, okay, what's the value of a warehouse building versus other permitted uses that were assumed to happen in the innovation district? And the assumptions made a couple of years ago about innovation district development was, close to 90% of the development would be valued about $100 a square foot. And then a smaller percentage, a little bit less than 10%, would be valued at $50 a square foot, just based on what we envisioned in the project the town projected in that area. So we're seeing warehouse building types, and we're building some. They're not warehouse uses. They're large, 36,000 square feet, 24,000 square feet, 44,000 square foot buildings that the warehouse building design, building construction and land is around or higher than $100 a square foot. That's not like finished space. So that's the warehouse itself. And then if you fit up an office, you do some interior improvements, you're going kind of beyond that value. So it's a good benchmark for what a warehouse would be valued at, and kind of gives us confidence around continuing to meet the marks the project is expected to.
So you're saying it's essentially similar. There's not a significant difference between what you're proposing by the zoning amendment and the various types that are there now or would be in the future.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's helpful. And then, so the other question I had related to that is that in August, I think it was, we had a very in-depth and very helpful update by the Downs and yourself on the ROI, the return on investment. So would that mean that you'll be changing some factors, in that calculation? And does that really, mean that we're in better shape than we thought we were in August? So how did these fit into that analysis?
Sure. So that analysis was in the innovation district. What we have already developed was in planning and permitting, or is planned. And so that did not include adding any warehouse type uses. So that this would not sort of subtract from or take the place of. This would be in addition to, say, with this amendment, we would then add likely additional value in the same build out timeframe, because there might be a warehouse or two that would come along with, in addition to those projections that you saw Don back in August.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Dan, would you mind stop sharing? That way I can see
Happy
the
to.
council again. Yep. Councilor Katarina?
Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't able to do the walkthrough the other day. One of my questions is, and this came up in some conversations I've had with others regarding value and, what makes sense in this innovation district. I got actually two questions. One is, how many
Marie,
of,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. I just have a question, a point of information. Is this the public hearing and counselor questions are we going to have, or is this just the public hearing? I really apologize. I'm just trying to get, I'm wondering if we're going to go into Q&A on Dan's proposal. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I finish my statement, my question?
Yep. Betsy, right at the top, that's precisely what I said, that we could have some brief Q&A with a presentation, and then I'll open up for a public hearing. Yeah, I believe I sent an email. I believe I sent an email last night as well to the entire council stating that we would do this. Yep.
All right. Thanks for explaining. Sorry, Jean Marie, apologies.
Okay, thanks. Is how many of the businesses going into the innovation district now already have a warehousing component as part of their build out or distribution? And how many coming in it would help to attract to have that component? And then lastly, how many do you think you would have that's all they want is a warehousing? Because I know that's a concern to some people. And just the last thing is that 30%, because on long range planning, we talked about the 30%, and that's it for my questions. So
Sure.
if you could hit on those.
Yeah, so currently the either already open or planned or in permitting end users. Like I was saying, many of the buildings from the exterior look like a warehouse, but what they're doing inside isn't warehousing, is maybe a service business, is adding some value. I think mainly Tubbs is maybe the best example that could be argued closest to warehousing, where it's a 45,000 square foot warehouse that you look at from the exterior, but they're assembling hot tubs, they're storing hot tubs, they're repairing hot tubs. So they're doing some additional light assembly processing that make them different than warehousing. But I would say 2/3 of the buildings that are up or underway have open kind of warehousing space. They just happen to be doing other land users or other operations within them, to help answer that question. In terms of the role warehousing plays to attract end users that we're pretty excited about in Innovation District is that there's, like I said at first reading, there's some biotech firms, there's some medical type industries, there's the food and drink industry that all are relying heavily on warehousing right now. And we see this as an opportunity for those kind of key uses to end up in the Innovation District, and then also grow their campus, and then which can lead to labs, which can lead to some food processing, some breweries, things of that nature. Cold storage could propel other industries that want to locate there. So we're not looking for this to be a warehouse and distribution project. We're looking for it to complement and draw the type of industries that want to be in Scarborough in the Innovation District. I think I forgot your third question, Jean Marie.
It was that magic 30% number, because I
30.
think there's some confusion. Is that 30% of each parcel, 30% of the total? What is it? So
It's 30% of the total developable lot area in the Innovation District. So that's what it would be. It could end up being a couple larger warehouse type sites that end up using that space, or it could be a handful of small to mid-sized type facilities. We're viewing it as first come, first serve, that we think meet the standards and achieve the goals of the Innovation District.
Any other questions for Dan? Okay, with that, I'm going to move on to the public hearing. Dan, thank you. I'll move on to the public hearing. Are there any other, excuse me, are there any members of the public that would like to speak to this? There is not. So with that, Dan, since I promoted you to panelist, every time I kick you out, you won't be allowed to rejoin at all, I think, and that's been an issue. So I'm just going to stop your video, Dan, but you might still technically be in here, but your video will be stopped. Okay, with that, thank you. We are now on to order number 20115. It's a 7 p.m. public hearing and action on the following applicants who have applied for a renewal of their manufactured housing communities license. Number one is Crystal Springs Manufactured Housing Community from Crystal Springs MHP LLC. Number two is Pinecrest Manufactured Housing Community for Teresa DeFossis and Tina Marie Smith. Number three is Hillcrest Manufactured Housing for Teresa DeFossis. And we will do the public hearing before I ask for action. So is there any members of the public that would like to speak? I saw Teresa in here, but she's not anymore. Yeah. Tina, I'm assuming you don't want to speak because your hand's not up. So with that, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No? Tody?
Counselor Cucci?
Yes.
Counselor Glystein?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you. Order number 2116 is a 7 p.m. public hearing only on a new request for following marijuana establishment licenses and schedule final approval for Wednesday, January 6, 2021. There is one of them. It's the Sands Family Partners LLC located at 137 Pleasant Hill Road for adult use medical marijuana cultivation license and adult use marijuana manufacturing license. And I will let our town manager speak to this. I meant assistant, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I could speak to it, but not as
Yeah.
eloquently as he.
And see, this is my issue. Now I've hidden him. Liam, if you want to go ahead and activate your microphone, I think we'll hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We do, yep.
Okay, great. So just to introduce this item, these are actually two separate licenses. And to clarify, they're both for adult use. It's one adult use marijuana cultivation and one adult use manufacturing license. This entity is currently licensed for medical cultivation. However, it's a bit different than the last license we discussed that was making the migration from medical to adult use, and that they are expanding. My understanding is they're expanding their cultivation to some degree within the existing facility. So just want to clarify those 2 points. It is two licenses, both adult use, one manufacturing, one cultivation, and they are a currently licensed applicant.
Thank you, Liam. Any questions from counselors before I open it up to a public hearing? Seeing none, I will go to the members of the Councilor Glystein.
Yeah, Paul, I just wanted to point out that, the agenda under the section of the counselor meetings is only 2 pages. So everything we're doing now is not on anyone's agenda. The agenda under the town calendar seems to be the full agenda, although the town calendar had this meeting listed starting at 7. But if people are looking for the full agenda, you would have to go under the town calendar, and there's much more to the agenda under there. So if people are trying to follow along, I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, any questions for Liam? No? With that, I will go to the members of the audience. Okay, With that, I'll close out the public hearing. Liam, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Yeah, I can at least do this to maybe help this move a little bit better for everybody that's watching at home. We are now on order number 20111, which is act on the new request for the following marijuana establishment licenses. Number one is the Processor LLC located at 71 Pleasant Hill Road for adult use marijuana manufacturing facility. Number two is Potland, Maine LLC located at 71 Pleasant Hill Road for adult use marijuana cultivation facility. And number three is All Kind LLC located at 71 Pleasant Hill Road for medical marijuana manufacturing facility. Liam, are you still with us? Would you like to speak to this?
I am. So just one point I'd like to make. If you recall, the last meeting, there was actually a public hearing for 4 licenses. One has been removed. We're still waiting for them to clear up one of their license requirements. So I expect you will see them on the agenda for this January 6th for approval. That's my expectation at this point.
Thank you, sir. Before I ask for a motion, anybody in the public like to speak to this? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No? Tody?
Counselor Clucci?
Yes.
Counselor Glystein?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson.
Yes. Okay, we are now on to, hold on, wait for it. We're now on to new business. We are on to order number 2117. It's an act on the request to authorize the town manager to sign the necessary paperwork to purchase property located at 649 US Route 1, map U031, lot 33, a total amount not to exceed $385,000. Funds to be used from the voter-approved land bond acquisition fund. And Tom, would you like to tee this up before I ask for a motion?
Yes, I was successful in securing this property, negotiating a purchase and sale agreement. It is for the, is at this point under contract for the asking price of $379,000. The number included here provides a little additional funds to cover any closing costs associated. The other important thing for the public to know is that the purchase and sale agreement has a very clear contingency that the town council must approve this. And the deadline for that consideration is December 18th. So it's certainly timely for the town council to take the matter up this evening. This was the subject of executive session discussion earlier, so there may or may not be amendments that are offered. And I'm certainly pleased to answer questions as we move forward.
Thank you. Before we get into our business, I will open up to members of the public. Anybody here from the public like to speak on this particular item?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a letter that I've been asked by a public member.
Yep, sure. Just absolutely. I'll throw it over to you as soon as I have
Yep.
no hands here. Anybody in the audience? Okay, with that, Jean Marie, would you like to read the letter?
Sure. This is from Kathy Gray, 10 Dunstan Landing Road. Dear Jean Marie, I just wanted to let you know that my husband and I are in total agreement with your support of the town's purchase of Alger Hall. It is a perfect spot for community building. I don't know how many times my husband and I have had conversations about how there's no place in Scarborough to hold small group gatherings. We are members of the Baha'i community and have hosted a variety of meetings at the library, but have at times had challenges with the space requirements and have on occasion had to reach out to sites in other communities for an appropriate site. I'm very excited about the possibilities that this opportunity offers and have a strong belief that this is one of these occasions that if you build it, they will come. Thank you for your wonderful article in support of the acquisition of the building, and it is signed Kathy Gray.
Thank you. I'm going to close out public comment after that. Just as a reminder, if you do email us, we don't read it live unless you explicitly ask us to. So if you do email and you ever want us to read it, just as Jean Marie did, please let me know. I tend to not, if I assume people's words don't want them public. So tell me if you want it read into the record, and we gladly will do so. So with that, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And I believe there is a amendment that will be offered up, which I think we should just take care of now. It'll be easiest. Counselor Clucci?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you able to bring up the amendment? So
I
we
think
can read it
I
while
think
go?
I am.
Okay.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we brought this up at the Finance Committee yesterday and had a pretty in-depth discussion, mostly from a technical standpoint about whether the proposed use of funds was appropriate. And we agreed that this source of funds, which is the Land Bond Acquisition Fund, was appropriate. And in addition to the purchase price, some of the deferred maintenance costs were also appropriate. So that's the nature of the amendment that I'm going to propose. And it's on the screen. I'll read it to you. Act on the request to authorize the town manager to sign the necessary paperwork to purchase and perform deferred maintenance to the property located at 649 US Route 1, a total amount not to exceed $398,000, funds to be used from the voter-approved land bond acquisition fund. And then further, deferred maintenance to include roof replacement, foundation repair, and exterior trim work as identified within the engineering report from Deergle Architectural Engineering dated 12/4/2020.
Thank you. Is there a second on the amendment?
I'll second it.
And just so we're clear, we're not discussing the purchase, we're just discussing the amendment for right now. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Counselor Caterina?
Yeah, I think this amendment makes perfect sense. You know, it puts a boundary, if you will, about what we are attempting to bond using the conservation and historic preservation funds. And I think the numbers work, in my opinion. So that I would definitely support this amendment.
Any more on the amendment? Okay, Tony, you want to call the vote on the amendment?
Counselor Clucci,
Yes.
Counselor Gleisteen,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Katarina,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we are now back, for those of you at home, we are now debating essentially the purchase of the building. And with that, which has now, that amendment essentially also included some extra money for 3 identified maintenance issues that the Finance Committee agreed fell under conservation and preservation of the property. So with that, I'll open up discussion for the main motion. Counselor Katarina.
Yeah, I mean, I might as well kick this off as the liaison to the Historic Preservation Committee in town. The members are very much in support of us preserving this building for the opportunity to purchase it. It is a use that's lined out and was voted on and approved by the people of Scarborough because it was pretty clear in that order that monies can be used for historic preservation. And this clearly meets that. I did write an article for the Counselor's Corner and also something that will be in the Leader. Most people don't realize the history of this building, and it was always the old deeds had it for public good, use of the public. Public good is throughout the old deeds on it. I feel that maintaining this, again, it's the early Grange movement. For people who may not be familiar, Grange movement was basically when the agricultural communities throughout the United States, pretty much, I guess you'd call it organized or got together for community good and to support farmers. And this was one of the earliest Grange buildings, if not one of the first ones in the state of Maine. So I just think it makes sense just purely from a preservation viewpoint, but I also think the building has the potential to lend itself to many uses that we may wish to consider, i.e. as a letter I read in from one of our constituents, which was, you know, we need more community space in town, and I think Dunstan Corner is a perfect place for it. I know the fire department used to be able to use the whole room in there, the public room, but now they use half of it for their sitting area in the fire station. So there's not much public space in there anymore. So anyway, that's why I think this makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder, if you guys, do you mind muting yourself if you're not speaking? We're just getting some feedback. Councilor Gleisting?
Yes, I appreciate the information shared by Councilor Katarina. Unfortunately, I can't support this tonight. I think that the expense, while the base expense will come out of the land bond fund, of course, we have to bond that. And then, we were kind of running some numbers before, and that's, maybe another $45,000 a year to the debt for this. And then from there, I believe that the first speaker, and I apologize, I heard her name was Randy, and I didn't catch the last name, but I thought that she really expressed a lot of concerns that I have about it being a community space. That the parking is just very limited. And I think, that's going to make it really tough for it to be a viable community space. And then it does appear there are extensive interior renovations that would be needed to make it an interior space. And maybe we could put those off for some period of time. But if we do that, then we're purchasing it not really for any kind of immediate community space. I know that I have worked on another committee in a different arena to look to ADA buildings, and it's quite expensive, especially if you have to get into a lift and an elevator. Very expensive. So, it's a tough decision, but times are going to be tough. It's going to be a tough budget, and I'm just not seeing this as a viable property that fits into the overall comp plan. I think if we do a consolidated school, we're going to have 3 schools that will no longer be in use. We don't know if that's the case or not, but we're also being asked for library renovation that will have some more meeting space. Again, we don't know if that will happen. And there's still conversation about, a sports center. And now we're leasing space at the House of Lights, which is quite extensive. And perhaps, if the kids go back to school during the day, some of that we're leasing currently could be used for some short-term senior space. So I just think right now we don't have enough of a plan for this. And I think, part of the need has been spoken of us, acquiring this for the fire department use for the future, but that's not really for historical preservation. So unfortunately, it's a tough call, but I'll be voting no tonight.
Thank you. Any others? Councilor Clucci?
Yeah, I do support this, and primarily the way I look at it is to preserve the building. Beyond that, we can spend some time, but I think your history is really important, almost sacred, and you never get a chance to protect it again. Once it's gone, and we have been doing so much redevelopment in town that I think some of the few older structures that have significant history and value to them are important to protect. So that's it, and I actually think that that's exactly what the voters approved when they supported the land bond acquisition fund a couple of years ago. So it's kind of simple for me. If this structure was maybe not centrally located or not historic, then I don't think we'd be talking about it. But I think given where it is, its history, its importance to the town, I think it's something that is worth doing. So I support it.
Thank you. Any others?
Mr. Chair, I apologize. I disappeared for a minute. My internet crashed.
Well,
Now
we
I'm back.
definitely know you're back. Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, I want to say, I really do appreciate the historic value that this property offers to Scarborough. But I think I'm going to agree more with Councilor Gleisting on this one and probably not support it tonight. For me, I think, also considering what Councilor Clucci just said, how, historic preservation is within scope of using the land bond. I think there's also a lot more that's within scope that this bond could be used for. And, knowing that our comprehensive plan lays out a lot of new things we want to do in the future, I think there's going to be better opportunities to use that land bond in the future that's going to have more return to the community. And as Councilor Gleistein said, right now, purchasing this, knowing that there's going to be a lot of decisions we need to make about the budget going forward, whatever we can do to kind of make sure we can use funds to support key needs to get us back to normal. Knowing that last year was a tough budget year, I think we need to make that a top priority. And so for tonight, I'm not going to support this.
Thank you. Any others? Yep, Councilor Caterina, sure.
Mr. Chair, could you just encapsulate for me what I missed, the comments, if you don't mind, just real quickly?
It was Councilor Gleistein's turn, and so she, I believe, expressed her opposition. I'll let her speak for her. I'll let her speak for herself.
And that's fine. And anyone else speak? I came back and Mr. Clucci was speaking.
No.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this? Councilor Hamel?
Yeah, this is definitely a tough one. And I started out really being quite positive with the opportunity and the concept of the historic preservation aspects of it. And then you would try to work through the overall costs and the overall scenarios, and there's no clear outcome for this other than us buying the building at this point and trying to preserve it historically. So I think that that could be enough, but there are big cost issues, there are timing issues. So as time has gone by, I've really really wrestled with this one. But I think our role sometimes is to try to decide, where to put a marker down. And the timing for something like this is never great. But there's a lot more for us to decide on this. So I think where I'm coming out is I think that, so far so good. I'm willing to kind of stand in favor of the historic preservation aspects. But the other things that we talk about in terms of, future fire department applications or kind of getting off on a tangent, I don't think that's going to work very well for me. So if we can kind of secure the facility, restore it, and then develop it for community use and hopefully in a fashion that would be self-sustaining, renting out the space and so forth. I just think we're sorely in need of space. I think longer term there are some solutions, but there's an immediate need and immediate opportunity. So I think I'm, net positive on this, but we'll be, looking at every subsequent step very carefully.
Thank you, sir. Any others? Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, I've been on the fence with this one a couple times. I do believe the space is needed. I think the location is great. I do believe it is a proper use of the land bond. And I received an email from an ex-counselor saying that, if it doesn't work, we could sell it. So that kind of turned me on it. So I'm actually going to support this tonight.
Thank you. Any others? Tony, would I call the vote, please?
Counselor Clucci?
Yes.
Counselor Gleisteen?
No.
Counselor Anderson?
No.
Counselor Caterina?
Absolutely, yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everybody. Order number 21, excuse me, let me pull it up. I can't see. Sorry, everybody. I just want to make sure, to Betsy's point, I want to make sure people watching can follow along. Order number 2118 is act on the request from the tax collector for a waiver of foreclosure on the following properties. 247 Deerwood Street, map T1, lot 247. 13 Crystal Lane, map T3, lot 13. 1 Skyline Street, map T1, lot 1. 8 David Drive, map T3, lot 8, 193 Arbor Street, map T1, lot 193, 218 Emerald Drive, map T2, lot 218, and 28 Matthews Way, map T3, lot 28, and authorize the town manager to sign the necessary documentation. I apologize that my cadence was a little rough there. Tom, I believe you're going to introduce this? Okay.
Certainly, yes. This time of year is when the automatic foreclosure happens. And so we're within weeks of that happening under Maine law, unless the council takes some action otherwise, as this matter is before you, automatic foreclosure occurs for non-payment of real estate taxes. In these instances, these are properties that we've deemed that the town really does not wish to own through the automatic foreclosure process. They are of such a condition and value that frankly, it's more of a liability than an asset. And so we do this on some regularity. I think we've done it every year I've been here, and I would recommend you do the same this year.
Any questions for Tom before we put it on the floor? And
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Councilor Caterina? Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tom, these folks, I'm hoping that they've been taking advantage, those who are eligible for the senior tax credit and whatever. And I just want to remind people who may be watching that, we do want to work with you so that you don't reach this situation. So I did recognize a couple of the names on these, but yeah, we don't need to be owning people's property. Thank you.
Yeah, I have not had personal conversations, but I can tell you in all cases, these liens are at least 18 months age. And so the tax collector has had multiple conversations with each, and I'm certain that she's made them aware of all opportunities that are available to them.
Thank you. Councilor Hamill, question for Tom?
Yeah, Tom, the question I have is, we talked ad nauseum about what kind of year this is for people. And we're right in the middle of it being possibly at its darkest moment. Is there any other option for us to postpone this action so they don't automatically get foreclosed, extended or postpone it? Is there any other action that is within our authority other than the one you mentioned about assuming ownership as a town?
No, the automatic foreclosure is, as it sounds, automatic, and that's a function of state law. We have no local control over that mechanism. The only option is what's before you this evening, is to waive the foreclosure so it does not occur. I'm not aware of any other option available.
So just to follow up, if I may, so if we waive the foreclosure, does that mean it never would be foreclosed, and that the property reverts to us as town owners?
No, it's actually the opposite. It stays with the owner. We don't foreclose, so it doesn't become a town asset owned by the town.
So just help me with the logic on the vote then. So if we're in support of, not foreclosing on these properties, then we should vote against the automatic foreclosure. Is that right?
No, you should approve it as worded, which would waive the foreclosure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I go to the public? Okay. Any members of the public like to speak to this order? I see none, so I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? I should have asked this earlier, so I apologize, Tom. Is this the same batch that came to us about a year ago? Do we keep doing the same properties? We do, correct?
Very often there are repeat customers. I can't say for certain that it's exact same, but
But it's not unusual for these just to pop back up.
No,
Okay.
it's not by chance that they're in front of you this evening.
Apologize, I should have asked that before. Good. Okay, Tody?
Counselor Calucci?
Yes.
Counselor Glystein?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Katerina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes,
Can I just, the link on the website's working
it is.
on
Okay.
the agenda.
Yep. Oh, thank you. Okay, next we have order number 2119. It's an act on the request to amend Resolution 11-7, which is a resolution to approve the charge of the Long Range Planning Committee approved on July 20th, 2011, to change the planning board member and the town council member to serve as liaisons and as non-voting members. This, I believe, the original idea was by Councilor Gleistein, and then Councilor Katarina is co-sponsoring it as the liaison. So I guess I will let Councilor Gleistein, do you want to?
Sure. This also came out of questions raised by Councilor Johnson. So the charter requires 5 regular members of the Long Range Planning Committee and 2 alternates, but it is silent on any kind of requirements or posts or positions that make up that body. And the charge for the Long Range Planning Committee actually gave 2 voting seats, one to a sitting planning board member and one to a sitting town councilor. And that's a little bit, and I'm sure there were good reasons for it. So I'm not, saying that the past council was wrong, but I think as tradition has gone along, sitting members of other boards typically are advisors as opposed to voting members, because they will have a vote as the item comes in front of them on their other committee, or in our case on the council. So the idea would be that the role would still be incredibly important for the advisor from the town council and from the planning board, because it truly is a liaison / advisor. And for all intent purposes, I think the meetings would really not be very different, because a lot of times this group, I'm told, acts under consensus, not even by voting. The voices of those 2 members would be a part of the discussion, would be a critical voice on that committee. So that would not change. But what it would do for us is, in this crucial committee that is the only one that we call out in the charter that is not quasi-legal, it would give 2 more members of the public an opportunity to serve on long range planning. And so I think that that would be a plus. And the second pro would be that it would put this more in line with our other positions, where the counselors and all our other positions, we act as liaisons and advisors, not as voting members. So we do that in ad hoc as well. So that's the intent, and I'll let Councilor Katarina speak to it, or anyone else if they would like to.
Thank you. Jamie, do you have anything to add to that before I go to the public?
No, just as liaison to the long range planning. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to me, whether I have a vote or not, or the planning board member has a vote or not. I know when I first got on to long range planning, I thought it was peculiar that I had a vote. So there you go. So I don't have an issue with it. I do have a question though, because now that I'm sitting here looking and listening to Councilor Gleistein, we didn't change the number of the members. It still says 5 regular and 2 alternates. So is that the intent?
Yeah, 5
For
regular
purposes?
2 alternates. We can't change
Okay.
the number of members because the charter sets the number.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So we
I
could
just
take it
wanted
up
to.
in charter. We could take it up in charter if we
Yeah.
want.
Yep. Okay.
But yeah, and I would just say, Councilor Hamel reported to me that it's so usual that we're just advisors that at one point he asked if he should vote, and someone on the committee said, no, you don't have a vote. So like when he acted as alternate. So I think this puts it more in line of
Right.
what people think we do anyway on the committee.
I agree.
Tom, did you want to add to
Yeah,
that?
just to further clarify, the language being stricken effectively does add two members, two additional regular members, because the current language says the town council representative, and the planning board representative shall constitute two of the
Ah.
regular members.
Yeah.
So I think
gotcha.
effectively it is adding two.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just gonna go to the, Don, I think we go to the public before just, and then put it on the floor. Is that okay, Don? Is that appropriate? Okay.
Absolutely.
Any members of the public? And now I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Actually, I guess it was, okay, and second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Don, Councilor Hamel?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for their work on this. This is an interesting one. It did emanate from a couple of folks looking very closely at the charge, and I think it presents us with an opportunity to accomplish a number of things that Councilor Gleistein pointed out. So I appreciate the initiative and the energy and the speed at which this was brought forward, and we'll be able to use this straight away in our next series of appointments and negotiations committee meetings. So, really well done. And I think it's a win-win. And hopefully we'll have more examples like this of things coming out of committee that come right before the council and we take action on swiftly.
Thank you. Councilor Clucci?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Counselors and planning board members are relatively busy with other matters. So I think 3 core members carrying the load for such an important committee that really does a lot of work. I think it seemed a little light to me. So I do support this. One question I might have is we're referring to them as the planning board and town council reps as liaisons. Should they be ex officio members, or would that conflict with something? And I guess the distinction might be that then they could help constitute a quorum if you didn't have 3 regular members at a meeting.
This might be a question for Tom and Tody, but it would seem to me that I don't know. I don't recall we've ever used ex officio as a term on committees. It might be true for the ad hoc committees that we've been doing, but Tom, I don't. In terms of the standing committees, whether they're the judicial ones or the town council committees, I don't recall that term currently or recently having been used.
Yeah, I can't say we're consistent, but I think Councilor Calucci points out the key distinction. The ex officio can serve to constitute a quorum for purposes of quorum. The voting aspects are the same regardless. I might suggest, if I could, since this is a resolution and obviously can be changed at the whim of council, if we have a problem with that, we can certainly come back and rectify that. Sure. I don't anticipate that will be, particularly this group, they've shown themselves to be very faithful in their service. And I'm not aware that this group, Jean Marie can attest to it, has really had any problems historically having a quorum to conduct business.
And Don, just to add to that, I think the council chair is in the charter is defined as ex officio of all the standing committees, the council. So that language is used a little bit as regards to the chair of the council. But John, to your point, there are 2 alternates, right? So I feel like they can work towards the quorum as well. So I feel like the alternates fill that need, so to speak. So
I'm satisfied.
okay, he's satisfied. Perfect. Any other discussion, Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, I think this is great. I think especially as you look at the charge and how the Long Range Planning Committee is charged with looking at the comprehensive plan and helping going forward, opening it up to more members, given that this plan is very different from the last one and it really does touch on a lot of areas. I think by expanding the bench allows us to bring in more people with more views that really kind of support the new direction we're trying to take. So I think expanding it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, sir. Any others? No? Quick comment. I did touch base with David Merrill this afternoon. We played phone tag for about 5 days. Speaking solely for himself, he had no objections to this. So we had a cordial conversation. And I think the only thing I would add personally as a counselor is I do think it would all be a little better served if long range planning took votes instead of doing by consensus. I think just looking at vote counts and it sets people up to make statements on why they're voting yes or no, and that's often helpful in the minutes. So that would just be my gentle suggestion, is perhaps vote on it in
They do, well, they do take votes.
Do they do it? I mean, but it's kind of wishy-washy, correct? I mean,
No, well, not if it's time to do a vote. We've
Okay.
done votes. There's a lot of, talking and massaging and moving on to the next meeting and whatever, but there are votes.
Okay.
So,
No, that was a characterization by Jay, saying that because I asked specifically, how certain parts of the comp plan came about, and said that group works a lot by consensus. So that's kind of where that came from. And I would suggest, Paul, too, we're not doing it tonight, but that, this become one of the committees that, even after Zoom goes away, that is recorded, because it's so critical to the town. And people like to go back and watch meetings when they're really interested in an issue, or when something comes up that they don't understand, or that they're trying to follow through. And so I think Zoom has opened this door, but I think we need to find a way to keep that up with this particular committee, again, being the only committee that's not quasi judicial that is called out in our charter. So that's how important it is.
yeah, I 100% agree. There's no reason why things should not be archived on YouTube henceforth, and in the town website, of course. So.
Just Councillor Gleisteen, I would suggest you, as Chair of Rules and Policies, could make that a matter of discussion and perhaps move it forward. That requirement is contained within Chapter 302 within your mandate and purview.
Good. Tony?
Counselor Clucci,
Yes.
Counselor Gleisteen,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Katerina,
yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes. I'm not going to pull this one up because it's pretty easy to follow. Order number 2120 is an act on the request from the town manager to provide town staff with paid holidays on Thursday, December 24th and Thursday, December 31st, in recognition of the efforts made throughout the course of 2020, and specifically their resolve in responding to the community needs during the COVID pandemic. Tom?
Yeah, I approached the council leadership a week ago. I beg your pardon. I approached town council leadership about a week ago. As the calendar falls this year, these holidays appear on a Friday, so there's kind of an opportunity for an extended weekend. Council leadership was gracious enough to allow this to go on the agenda. I very much would like to make this important gesture to staff. I really do think, in spite of everything been thrown at us, and they're not alone, but they've really risen to the occasion and continue to. So this would be certainly go a long way to recognizing that effort.
Do I have a motion? Nope. Sorry, Don. Do you have a question? I'm sorry, Don.
I
Did you
had
have
a
a question?
question, yeah.
Yep.
I had a question. So Tom, can you just give us an idea of what group this covers? Does this cover, all employees, or just town hall employees, or so forth? Thank you.
It would cover all employees. For non-union, they would actually take, or for anyone that can, because of the nature of their job, take the holiday on that day, they will. But there are certain positions that we have that simply aren't able to. And in those cases, they're granted a day to take a day in the future. That's not unlimited. We do have some bounds around, when the period of time is that they need to take that day. But the majority of those that can take it will take it on the day.
So it'd be all non-union, salaried, and non-exempt employees.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Katerina and then Councilor Hamel.
Yes, I appreciate Mr. Manager bringing this forward. I think it's a fabulous idea. I know I have been extremely impressed by the commitment of all members of the staff with whom I've dealt with, and I know that our constituents have been well served throughout this really difficult time. So this is the least we can do for them. So thank you very much for bringing this forward, and obviously I will support this.
Councilor Hamel?
Yeah, there are very few ways for us to make formal, recognition for people, and this is one way we can do it. The time off is somewhat of a soft cost. I know there were people who would argue with me about that, but this is one of those things where we really do need to recognize those, and we do what we can within what our authority. So I know there are a lot of other folks out there that may be out of work and have all sorts of other situations. So if they're looking at this, they might have very strong feelings about it. But I think in the spirit of us doing what we can and recognizing those that put in extra effort, then we should do that. And that's how this came forward, and that's why I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I should note that traditionally, and I expect this year will be the same, the holiday period, foot traffic, customer service, demands for services falls off considerably. I will say since election, it's been eerily quiet here to begin with. So I think that coupled with the pandemic, I expect there'll be very, very little impact on customer service. We'll certainly do signs and publicity around this, so people hopefully will be aware of the change.
Any others?
Well deserved, and thank you.
Councilor Gleisting?
Yeah, I mean, I think the town staff did a fabulous job, and I certainly recognize that. I think they went above and beyond, and what I say at a number of meetings, local government rocks. Every other government was freaking closed, and we kept going. We kept meeting. We kept plugging away. We kept the services going. So I do applaud this. I guess it makes it a little bit odd, for what I'm going to say next. But, this is a little tough for me because I think I'm just, of all the people that are in a really bad financial situation right now, and I think that most people who had jobs and good benefits and paid time off and all of that were just very happy to have their jobs and compared to other folks. And we had so many people in our society that really kept going to work. First responders and Hannaford employees, Walmart employees. I know our small business people would have liked to have been open. I so appreciate the service. I'm just not quite sure this was the right way to recognize it, but I appreciate the effort in terms of the attempt to recognize the employees, because we did do, as a town, I think it's impressive what our town and many other towns did. So I so appreciate the service.
Thank you. Any others? Okay. John was thinking about it and he's a no. Okay. Tony, you want to call the vote?
Counselor Clucci?
Yes.
Counselor Gleisting?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you. That was unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Item number 9, non-action items. There are none. Item number 10, please raise your hand if you have a standing and special committee report. Councilor Clucci.
Sure. Yeah, it's a busy week. We had our first finance committee meeting yesterday. I thought it was productive. We reviewed some of the items on the agenda today, as well as talked about our goals as a group. And I think individually we'll bring those to the January workshop for the council. I wasn't able to attend there was a Conservation Commission meeting this week, but I was able to catch up on the video. It conflicted with me thawing out from the down site walk, which was also very, I think, very productive. I did want to pass along it seemed to be the sentiment from the Conservation Commission that there was pretty widespread support for the work that's been done on the comp plan. And they had a pretty active discussion about that. So I just wanted to pass that on. There's a SEDCO Board of Directors meeting tomorrow. A number of interesting topics on it. They are going to discuss the proposed zoning changes at the Downs, as well as some of the potential relief packages coming down the pike, or the current status. And there's also an EcoMaine Executive Committee meeting tomorrow afternoon. And one of they don't have any debt per se in EcoMaine, and it's the way things are trending in the next 4 to 5 years. It's something that they're starting to talk about and bring back on the table because some of the facilities need some major improvements. So that'll be a way to help manage their cash flow. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Any other standing committees, liaison reports? Councillor Hamel and then Councillor Katarina.
Yes, I just want to remind people that we will have a appointments and negotiations committee meeting on Monday, December 21st. And my apologies to the town staff, but they were good enough to offer to do an extra meeting. This is a good example of the sort of extra efforts that everyone has referred to earlier this evening. So we'll be plowing through a number of committees and trying to just spend most of the time staffing open vacancies so that we can hit the ground running in January with hopefully fully staffed committees. So with that, I'd also like to make another appeal to the public to look at the vacancies that are listed on our website. And there is an online application you can fill out and return in person or via email if you've got a copier. And we look forward to to really having a good year with well-staffed committees with really engaged and enthusiastic people to help us govern the town. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Councillor Katarina.
Yeah, Long Range Planning Committee is meeting Friday morning at 8 a.m. sharp, and we are online. I encourage folks to tune in. We will be doing some ongoing work on the comprehensive plan. So that's my announcement.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, so the school board long range planning committee met earlier this week. So Sarah Layton reached out to me because they're interested in revisiting conversations around and kicking things back off about the consolidated schools. And so she reached out asking what's the best way to kind of kick things off back with the council to start conversations again. So I'm going to work with her and Paul to figure out when in the new year we can have a workshop potentially just to kind of revisit where they were, where they are, where they're going, and make sure we're on the same page and can have an open conversation going forward on that particular topic.
Thank you, sir. Any others? Okay, I have just one quick thing. Our leadership meeting is actually tomorrow. We've been making it a habit of having our leadership meeting on Thursdays when we have a council meeting on Wednesdays. So look for my chair report sometime tomorrow. Dawn, I think we were going to do in person, but let's call it virtual because of the snow. Does that sound good? Yep. Yeah, I would have preferred in person, but we're going to be under a few feet of snow, so we'll stick to virtual. So look for the chair's report from me, hopefully sometime tomorrow afternoon. Item number 11 is councillor comments. Are there any general councillor comments? If you want to raise your hand, Mr. Anderson and then Ms. Katarina.
Yes, so I just want to thank Community Services for this weekend where they put on the Santa Claus for all of the families in Scarborough. Again, kind of going back to the ingenuity and innovation that's been happening. I think Todd especially has been doing a great job trying to think of how do we continue to help families, our seniors and others still feel engaged and involved given the tough times. And so my kids enjoyed it. The line was long. It was great to see everybody and have that little bit of holiday cheer in a very different way than we're used to. But I just want to recognize the staff, the volunteers, and everybody who put on that event.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Katarina.
Yes, I just want, since this is our last meeting before the holidays, I know Hanukkah's already kicked in, but this is the time of year where people do celebrate. And I would just want to wish everyone well with their holiday celebrations. And please stay safe. I know this year is going to be very different from other years, but we will get through this. Zoom's a great thing, particularly when, as long as Spectrum doesn't screw up their signal like they have done with me 2 or 3 times today. But just enjoy your time. Come up with some new things to do with family, and again, be safe and stay warm. And hopefully we'll all be able to dig out from under the snow tomorrow. I'm not happy about that, but Santa and his sleigh will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Well, I didn't know if I had hit off mute or not. Sorry.
Well, just want to stay.
I got awkward. Tony, you want to call the vote?
Counselor Calucci,
Yes.
Counselor Gleisteen,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Katerina,
Yes, happy holidays.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes.